Strive Coaching Studio, guiding business leaders to meet the highest version of themselves. And now, here's Michelle, certified coach and founder of Strive Coaching Studio.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to podcast number 12. Today, I am really enjoying the idea that I can talk about adult learning and how we tend to have a difficult time as adults relearning new things or relearning old things. And this is a topic I've actually spent a lot of time teaching and talking about, really regardless of any skill set I'm teaching or concept that I am teaching right now. I always try to start here in order to remind us adults about the challenges of learning and what the learning process really includes, because for many of us, it's been a long time since we've made the attempt to even learn something new or try to learn something new. And when we do, there's a lot of frustration that comes along with it, which tends to set us back and prevent us from learning. So I love to talk about this topic because once I do, I realize that the learning of the concept and the teaching of that skill set for people is at least a lot easier because they understand where they are in the process and what they need to do. So we adults have learned things and we've created our habits, and we do a lot of things second nature. We don't need to learn how to do certain things again. And it keeps us running on a very efficient brain activity, very efficient muscle memory, very efficient neural pathways. Those habits that we've created have made life easier for us and allow us to do a lot of things and take on a lot of things because we don't have to think too hard about it. We're just able to keep operating the way we've always operated. It's a super efficient system, and it is how we're designed. So it's hard to argue it. It's hard to dispute it. It's hard to undo that or try to interrupt it or even question it when things are running fairly smoothly for the machine. So that's why it's so important to talk about the 4 levels of learning for adults, because it helps us really mindfully and consciously and deliberately become aware of whether or not we want to learn, and if we're going to, what that process looks like to recognize when we're feeling a certain way or becoming frustrated, why that is. And in the end, when we really want to learn something new or change the way we've done something, the only way to do it is to go through this process. So a lot of people say once you do something for 30 days, you'll make it a habit. That's certainly a component of all of this. And a lot of us have had a lot of different theories and ways that we have created new habits for ourselves or changed our lifestyles or learned how to diet, things of that nature. So all of this applies to what I'm going to talk about today. The first point I want to bring up is it's such a beautiful thing when somebody is brand new at a new job, for example, just using that example, and they've never done it before, and they have no idea what they're doing. They think they know because they learned some things about it ahead of time. But at the end of the day, when they show up on their first day, they really have no idea what the experience, what the real life process or expectation really is. And it's such an interesting and fun process to watch as a manager, as a leader, as a trainer, when you get to see somebody come in who is just naively and blissfully clueless and so excited. It is such a beautiful place to be. And what I love about that type of person and that level of learning, because we've all been there at one point or another, and we all have seen people be in this stage before, is that they tend to be what we would call very lucky. And we call it beginner's luck. And the reason for that is because they have no clue what to even be afraid of. And they are just so willing to dive in fearlessly. They are absolutely fearless. They might have some fears about things, but they don't even know what to be afraid of yet. So they're not afraid to just jump in and start doing things. And they're very willing and excited to learn. I call level 1, you've probably heard this concept before, but I'm going to go through it for you anyway, because I think it's a great reminder. I like to remind myself of this fairly frequently because when we all feel this way, it's so good to recognize the levels that we might be in. So level 1 is called unconscious incompetent. And that basically translates to you don't even know what you don't know. And you can't learn anything when you don't even know what you're supposed to be learning yet. And that's why it's fairly blissful, it's fairly naive, and it's fairly fearless, because you don't even know where to begin. If somebody doesn't show you, and if you don't fail or if you don't fall, there's really not even an opportunity to recognize what to tackle first. So level 1 is a great place. Unconscious incompetent. That's where I like to put the newbies in anything, the newbie in whatever it is that you're doing. We've all been a newbie at some point in our lives. Now, once we get going and we start experiencing things and we start failing and somebody yells at us and we get in trouble and we screw up, we make a mistake, or whatever the case may be, we start to recognize that we don't really know everything we should probably know. We start to get a little scared. And that's because we're in level 2. And level 2 is called conscious incompetent. We're still completely clueless about how to do it, but we're starting to become keenly aware of at least some or all of the things that we don't know about and that we do need to learn. And it is a really scary place to be. And many people find themselves quitting at this level because it's super uncomfortable to be so aware of everything you don't know and that you're not good at yet. And it's super uncomfortable to fail. And so many people quit because it really you're not having an easy time seeing the rest of the path all the way through at that point. But when we can recognize that that's where we are, that is the beginning stage to really getting to the ultimate goal of where we're trying to go whenever we're learning a new skill. So like I said, many people want to quit right here. It's a lot easier to just walk away, to lick your wounds, head out the door, and go do something you were good at. That is a whole lot easier. But it doesn't evolve you, and it doesn't grow you, and it is not in line with the goal that you set out for yourself. Obviously, you wanted to take on something new for a reason. So you're walking away from that goal. You're walking away from a result that you wanted to accomplish in your life or have or achieve. And so it is a quitting opportunity for you. And becoming super aware of that in that stage and how many people can be in that, even if it's your employees, many times you will recognize it in them. So notice that, level 2, conscious incompetent. Now, level 3 is when you have forced yourself through it. You totally understand that there's a lot you don't know and a lot you need to learn, and you start to seek out the people around you who can help you. You seek out the resources that will allow you to continue to learn and practice. And you have reached level 3, which is conscious competent. So now you are very well aware of all the things that you need to know, and you're learning them. You're practicing them. You're refining your skills. You're reading, you're researching, you're asking questions. You're doing it more and more. You're getting out in front of it. You're in front of customers, or you're in front of your peers or your bosses, and you're out there taking it on. So level 3 is conscious competent, learning, practicing, refining your skills, becoming better and better at where you're trying to go. It's an exciting time. It's work, but you actually can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the light at the end of that tunnel that everybody is working toward is level 4. And I call that unconscious competent. That is when you don't even have to think about it. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and you do it, and you don't even have to think about it. You've created habits. You could do it in your sleep. You know it like the back of your hand. You've evolved, you've grown, you went through all the phases, you recreated new habits in your brain and in your muscle memory, you've recreated neural pathways toward this goal, toward this achievement, and now you can do it without even thinking about it. It's like taking a walk, drinking a glass of water, breathing, all the things that we just do. We don't even have to think about it. We know how to chew, we know how to run, we know how to drive our car. Sometimes we can drive our car to the grocery store and not even realize the moves and the steps we took to get there because we've just created a habit. So everybody thinks that level 4 is the summit and the light at the end of the tunnel, just as I just described. And I think with specifically to a particular skill or a particular craft or many ways that we are trying to train ourselves, level 4 and being unconscious, competent, and having those habits and being evolved is, so to speak, a great achievement. But the awareness of these 4 levels of learning is really the key to all of it, and knowing where you are at all times. You can choose to stay at level 4 for that skill set if it's serving you, if it's working for you. The tricky part is, where we get in trouble is when those habits are no longer serving us. When we have created something or have been doing something for so long and it's not the best one for us anymore. And that if we just could be willing to go back to level 1 or level 2 and relearn some new ways and new processes, new ways of thinking, new ways of approaching things, that we can actually better ourselves by working through that process constantly. By constantly learning, constantly evolving, and constantly growing, we can continue to just move through that cycle. Now, again, we can do that and we can evolve and we can grow, and this can be a wonderful thing, and it is a wonderful thing. But in order to do it, we have to be willing to put ourselves through that process again of unknowing. And level 2, being scared, becoming well aware of how much we don't know, by failing, by falling, by making mistakes, by feeling like we might want to quit, and going through our practicing process again. And that's the part most people want to avoid. And we can understand that. We can understand why we would want to. Because many times you can be in number 2, going backwards into number 2 to try to relearn something. Maybe it's a diet habit that you're trying to recreate. Maybe it's a practice with your day and time management that you're trying to create. Maybe it's how you're approaching a relationship or an employee or somebody in your workplace that you're trying to recreate and relearn and re-establish some new habits for yourself. And when you're in number 2 and you are failing, or it's not working out so well, or you're forgetting and you're tripping and you're making mistakes, that's when you want to say to yourself, I'm just going to go back to number 4. I'm just going to go back to my old habit and my old way because it was a whole lot easier. Because your brain has not relearned it yet. Your brain has to finish going through that whole process. You have to learn, you have to practice, and you have to refine in order to create the new habits. So sometimes when we talk about these 4 levels of learning, it sounds so good on paper and it sounds so good when I'm telling you this. And then when you're in the moment and you realize you're in number 2, when you realize how much you need to still learn and how much work it will be, and when you've always been the expert and you've always been so good at what you do, and suddenly you're not anymore with one particular skill, it doesn't feel good. And you're concerned about what the people around you are thinking. All of that plays in. But if you can become aware of when you're in conscious incompetent, when you're in level number 2, and know that the goal is to get back to number 4 again, and there will be some work, but there is a way to get through there. There is a path. It's not going to be like number 2 forever. It's so worth it when you can learn how to play that guitar, when you have an improved relationship, when you've stuck to your diet for 45 days straight, when you've created a new time management habit that's gained you time in your life and changed your life. All of those things are so worth it when you get to your goal. It's hard to remember that in the moment when you're in number 2. I understand that. That's why we adults have such a difficult time relearning and changing our habits. But I promise you, if you can recognize that, we're all going to be able to improve ourselves nonstop. Lots of things in our lives. I think the mistake we make is thinking that number 4, being on unconscious competent habits, second nature, back of our hand, our brain wants to tell us that because it's so easy and so efficient that there's no reason to shake it up. There's no reason to change it. So we think that is the best place to be. And when we start to look at all 4 levels as there's no better place to be than the place you're in, because it's a constant cycle, you can choose for it to be a constant cycle and know that you will not stay in one place, that you can choose to continue growing and moving through it. Then no one level is better than another level. Number 1 can be fun sometimes, and number 4 can be fun sometimes. And number 2 can be fun sometimes, and number 3 can as well, especially when you know what you're doing in the process and why you're doing it and what you're trying to achieve. So I encourage you, no matter what it is that you're trying to learn, what it is you're trying to change, your new habits you're trying to evolve, being willing to go through the practicing and the failing and the learning is just 1/4 of the part of the process. Out of 4 levels, that's just one of them. The hard work will be over soon. Just stick with it. Be willing, and you're going to get there. So no matter what you're learning, no matter what you want to take on, no matter what you want to do in your life, just know this is part of the deal, and it's so worth it. I hope this helps you all. I look forward to next time, whenever you're learning something new, to put yourself in one of these levels and choose it willingly for the goal in mind.
Thanks for listening. For more great tips, visit us on strivecoachingstudio.com.